Hello and welcome to An Idol Called Food. I'm your host, JT Tapias, and in today's episode, we're going to be speaking about how to radically transform your life in all areas of life. Now, this audio is going to be an insert from an internal webinar that we did, but I felt like it was so good and there was so much value that I wanted to share it with you on this podcast. And I know that if you listen and you take notes, it is going to radically change things for you, specifically in the area of fitness and nutrition. But before I go there, I want to chat with you about the EYBPlanFuel.com. EYBPlanFuel.com supplements that make a significant difference in your life and allow you to show up as the best version of yourself. Without further ado, let's jump into how to radically transform your life in all areas.
We have an interesting subject because we are going to be speaking about how to radically transform your life in all areas. That's a bold statement, right? Let me just preface the conversation with the idea that I know who moves the needle, but as I've said before, I believe we have some tangible tools that can allow us to really strive in different areas. Of course, we're speaking about the realm of nutrition and fitness and how to really hone these things in, okay? But I don't want you to just close your mind to that, because I think if you do that, you're going to miss out on some really, really cool concepts here that can literally be applied to all areas. That's right. All areas of your life, you can apply this and be incredibly, incredibly successful. So this webinar is to show you, right, to teach you how to impress the only person that you need to impress. And that's you, right? It's the only person you need to impress. The point of this presentation is to give you a different way to think about goals, habits, and discipline so that we can make it easier to win. This process works in all areas, as I mentioned earlier, wealth, health, relationships, and pretty much anything that you set your mind to. And so it's going to be pretty powerful. So please stay tuned. If you have something to take notes with, please do so, because we're going to be covering a lot of things here today, and we're going to be circling back to these things. Okay, so how do we win? We're going to be speaking today about 5 things. We're going to cover 5 things: what to do, how to do it, why to do it, who do you need to become in order to make it happen, and when to start. Okay? What to do, how to do it, why to do it, who you need to become in order to bring these things to fruition, and when to get started. So, what do you need to do in order to win? This whole idea of fitness and a sustainable lifestyle, I think, is very daunting to most people, right? I think most people, to an extent, feel like they have most things under control, right? Whether it's work, their relationships, their parenting, they sort of have a structure and a steady pace. But when it comes to lifestyle and nutrition and fitness, it feels like it's one of the harder things for people to really hone in and be able to dial in, right? And so what we want to do here today is really make it as simple as possible. And the first thing we need to do is to not compare ourselves to anyone, because I think we often do that. I think we often think maybe I bring someone on and someone says, hey, I lost 10 pounds, I lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks. And automatically, right, we start to question, well, why am I not there? Or, we find someone on TV that looks great. And we're like, I want to look like that person. I think that's helpful sometimes. I think that can motivate sometimes, but we need to find a realistic version of ourselves, right? What is that realistic version? And we need to have that very clear in our mind. We need to know exactly who that person is, how that person acts, okay? Because if we can get into the mind of that person, that particular person that's already getting the goals that we want, then it makes things a lot easier, right? And so have a version of yourself that you would be proud of, okay? Whatever that means to you. I think that's important, because oftentimes we fall into that comparison, challenge, and that can be very, very tricky. So I want to talk to you guys about a framework that I use often in all areas of life, okay? And it is called the inversion framework, okay? And it was created by Albert Einstein. His process was called inversion. And he would always say, always invert when trying to figure out a problem. And so what does that mean, invert? Invert basically says that you're going to take a challenge that you have and you're going to turn it upside down. Okay. So here's an example. You take a white sheet of paper and it's just a white sheet of paper, and all of a sudden a little black dot falls on that piece of paper, right? The only thing we can see is the dot. There's more white on that paper, but when that little piece of black comes on the paper, that's the only thing that we can see. We're programmed to survive and not to thrive, right? We're programmed to spot threats so that we can survive and enjoy, but not to enjoy today. So you're constantly seeking alerts and threats in your mind. This is what your brain is there to do. So your brain is it's very good at coming up with all the reasons why things aren't going to work, all the reasons why, XYZ is not sustainable, or you're going to go back to where you used to be. And it'll remind you of all of those experiences. That's what the brain does. So we have, we have, our brain has the ability to basically, it has great skills in finding problems versus solutions. And so what I want to show you is how to use that anxiety driven brain, that threat finding brain, for something good, right? Once and for all, we're going to figure out, how do we take this brain that is constantly focused on the things that are bad, and how do we actually turn that around on its head? So here's an exercise, and I want you to imagine the least successful version of yourself. I know, sounds a little pessimistic, but just hear me out. I want you to find the least successful version of yourself. And I want you to ask yourself this question: what does that person, right, do or not do to guarantee you won't win? So, for example, that person, and you write it down, okay? That person says that person doesn't meal prep. That person doesn't schedule cardio sessions. That person goes often to restaurants. That person constantly tweaks the plan on their own. That person believes all the low calorie labels that are out there. That person doesn't show up for webinars. That person doesn't watch the replays. That person doesn't keep lines of communication open with his or her coach. That person actually tells little white lies about snacking those little extra calories to their coach. Now, I highly recommend that you do this exercise and be as honest with yourself and ask yourself the question: what would I absolutely have to do in order to lose, to in these 90 days to not get results? Okay. Ask yourself a secondary question: what are the absolute fewest moves that I need to make to mess things up? Play all out with me, guys, because I know it sounds a little pessimistic. You're like, what is this guy doing here? But remember, the brain will come up with reasons on why it's not going to work faster than it'll actually come up with solutions on why these things will work. Okay, so we're playing a little trick on the brain. What is the thing, right? What is the thing that I need to do to mess everything up? And what are the least amount of steps that I have to do in order to mess up? Okay, the smaller the list, the smaller you can make the list, the more potent it'll be. Okay, so I just gave you a big list. Find one or two or three max of those items that you can do that would mess everything up. If there's just one that you can do to mess everything up, pick that one, and that usually becomes your North Star in how you actually win. Okay, so I want you to think about this. If it's meal prep, if it's not meal prepping, and you say, I'm just not going to meal prep, and you pick that one, generally that one dynamic, if you actually do it, is the one that actually help you win. Does that make sense? So we pick out a list or two or three, and then we pick one that we say, I know if I pick this one thing, I would mess everything up. Just this one thing would mess the entire program up. Maybe it's not communicating. Maybe it's not meal prepping. Maybe it's tweaking your own diet. Maybe it's not adhering to the principles at all and you doing your own thing. Okay. How do we use these things that our brain come up with in order to win? So we need to invert that list. So let me give you an example. No meal prep, meal preps. No cardio schedule, cardio scheduled. Tweaks own plan, is coachable, right? Believes nutrition labels, right? Adheres to coach's guidelines. Doesn't come to webinars, actually shows up to the webinars. Doesn't watch replays, actually makes it a point to watch replays. doesn't communicate, communicates consistently. Little white lies actually keeps it real with the coach, right? Pretty simple stuff, guys. And so most of you guys know how to win because most of us know how to lose. Let me come back to this. Okay. Let me just because this could be a little confused, even though it's so simple, it's confusing sometimes. Your brain is a survival mechanism. It is an operating system. Its main goal is to keep you alive. And the way it does that is sending you all the bad information, all the cues to keep you out of trouble, to keep you out of ridicule, to keep you out of pain, to keep you out of all the discomfort. Your brain will show up. So now, since the brain is so good at doing that, what we're actually doing is we're actually creating the scenarios and saying, what do I need to do to mess things up? Because your brain will come up with that idea right away. And if we could reverse engineer that, that's how we actually win. Does that make sense? It's pretty simple stuff, guys. Okay. Now we know what to do, right? Let's talk about how to do it. And so most of the times, we don't do things because we haven't broken them down into the most basic form, right? A lot of times we fail to understand things because we don't actually break those things down. And so all we get is these big, big, big words. And I'm going to give you some examples here. But before I go there, it's important to understand that the more skilled you are, the more general a command can be, and you can follow it. So, for example, if I say, if you're super skilled in this area of nutrition, and I say, go count macros, calories, points, and I say that to a level 3 athlete, a professional athlete, right? That person is going to say, sure, I can go do that. That's a direct command to someone who's skilled. The less skilled you are, the more broken down the command must be, right? So let's just say that this is how we teach inside of the empty your bucket plan. That's why we make it super simple. We don't count calories, macros, or points, but we actually break things from the micro to the macro. So we talk about buy groceries, grow your proteins, buy your Tupperwares, get microwavable veggies, buy your pre-made salads, buy 0-calorie dressings, buy sodium-free enhancers. We break everything down. Another person would just simply say, around that, would say, you need to eat better. How do I get in shape? I need to eat better, right? Okay, well, that's pretty ambiguous. But when we actually start breaking things down, what we actually get is a blueprint. So we need to break things down. When you can't understand something, what you need to do is you actually need to break up those components so that you can actually go and create a blueprint and get things done. Because I believe truly, truly that results come down to the number of skills people have, and the number of skills that are required to understand and execute certain things. If you want to get something, if you're good at this thing of losing weight, staying on a healthy eating plan, making this into a lifestyle, you have acquired that skill and now you can execute it. If you're not executing, you haven't learned the skill. If you haven't learned the skill, it's because you haven't broken it down into little pieces. Right? If we have one broken link in the chain, just one broken link, that we don't know what to do in a certain area, we get stuck and the task doesn't get completed. So right now, I can tell you that if there are missing parts, if something is not clicking for you, it's simply because there's a broken chain in the link, and that's why you're not executing. You can blame it on a bunch of other things. You can say, JT, I'm skipping my meal prep. Well, most likely it's because you don't understand how easy it is if you actually set a time, a date, and a place, which is what we call intention setting. Maybe you say, I get busy at work and hours go by and I just skip meals. Well, maybe you're not understanding the importance of actually setting alarms. Guys, I'm sorry for being simplistic here, right? But it's that simple, right? We have a tendency to make these things something big and go, and we create all these stories around these things, right? I'm not blaming you guys. I have areas of my life where I create excuses and stories simply because it's my way of mitigating my discomfort with the realization that I'm actually not doing or I don't understand I don't understand something at a basic level, and therefore that's why I'm not executing on it. So this is really, really important, right? So the trick is to break it down where you cannot fail. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Moving on. So we need to break things down to the most basic level so that we can learn them. When you do that, you make it easier for skilled people and possible for less skilled people to actually execute. So let me give you an example. The word charismatic is a big word and it can mean a bunch of different things, but let's break it down. Charisma, right? Broken down is smile more, learn people's names, watch your tonality, keep eye contact, say thank you, say goodbye, etc. Right? That's what a charismatic person is. You're breaking it down. Now, if I tell you, hey guys, be charismatic, you're like, like, how do I do that? But if I break it down for you, it becomes very easy. Right? This is it's an easy way to basically break large things down. So things that are complex, things that are hard to understand. This is the essence. This is the essence of good teaching and training, breaking things down from the micro to the macro, right? And the interesting thing is that if you become a great learner, right, now you can teach better. And if you can teach, you're going to teach yourself a lot easier. This is why I say find someone in your circle of influence that you can actually teach these principles to, and you're going to learn them for yourself. You're going to actually create an extra layer of accountability for yourself, which is huge. If you take someone in your circle and you might think, well, I don't know enough and I only know certain things, take the basic things. Find someone to walk with, find someone to meal prep with, right? Share some of the concepts that we share inside of this webinar. Keep another person accountable, because when you keep someone accountable, guess what? It automatically makes you accountable. When you teach something, you learn it, even at a deeper level, right? So this is super important, right? And this is part of this learning process. Now, here's the thing, and I could already feel like you guys are thinking this is just a lot of work. This is so much work. There's so much to think about, right? Some people tell me, I came on this program and I have all this stress now, right? I'm stressed out, of course, because now you're tackling something that has been uncomfortable for a very long time, and now you're facing it, right? And that becomes very uncomfortable because now you can no longer just sit around and complain about something. You actually have the ability and the tools to do it. And when you don't do it, you get frustrated. And when you're kept accountable, and I say this respectfully, and you're not ready to let go of the toxicity that's been holding you back, it becomes very uncomfortable. You guys agree that accountability is it's tough, right? Saturdays when you have to check in and whatnot. So here's a takeaway from these things that we're talking about. If you can learn it, it is a skill. If it's a skill, you can teach it, right? We use specific words that are buckets of traits. Once again, big word, charismatic. I just broke it down. Big word for a bucket. So healthy person is a bucket. There's little components that actually break that down, because oftentimes that's a source of confusion. The big word, I want to get healthy. That's ambiguous, right? I get people on discovery calls all the time that I say, hey, what piqued your interest? And they're like, I just want to get fit. What does that mean? What does that mean? I just want to get better. I just want to make more money. Okay, here's a penny. Like, we got to get very specific. We got to break those things down, right? And so, I mean, listen, once again, guys, I know this is super simple, but I need to break it down like this so that you can understand that the thing that you're either doing really, really well, you can keep doing forever, and the thing that you has maybe been elusive to you is at the tip of your fingers. If we actually start to study these things and break these things down and see it from a very different perspective, okay? If we can teach ourselves to self-regulate food intake, wake up every day and exercise and choose activities that align with our new identity, right? If we can do that consistently, if we can actually create a map and say, if I do these things, I become this person. But oftentimes what we do is we say, I want to do this thing, and we've only been 2, 3 weeks into it. And then we're like, I'm not that person yet. It's like, yeah, but for 35, 40 years, you were that other person. So you're still reflecting, right? The behaviors you've materialized the behaviors of that person. So we need to dig deeper into these things. We need to become more of it. We do that by being more of that thing. Let's find 3 terms that I think will matter for everyone on this webinar here, and I think will cement the how. Okay, and I want to talk about the word learning, right? And the word learning is basically you have the same conditions, new behavior. So I'm going to explain. Same conditions, new behavior. That's what learning is. All right. This is a definition. Learning is same conditions, new behaviors. So here's an example. You get triggered and tempted, mishap. You get triggered and tempted, mishap. You get triggered and tempted. You have a protein shake. Right? So until you actually execute a new behavior, you haven't learned anything. Does that make sense? I don't know about you guys, but that was when I was going through these things and studying these things, that's pretty powerful for me, right? Because we have a tendency to think of learning in terms of facts. We memorize facts. But the truth is that the way we know we've learned something is if we can actually execute on the thing that we learned. So once again, you get triggered and tempted, you have a mishap, you didn't learn anything, triggered and tempted, you had a mishap, you didn't learn anything, triggered and tempted, you had a protein shake, learn behavior. Right? The second term is intelligence, which oftentimes, has just a plethora of meanings. And intelligence really is how fast you change what you do in the same situation. So the rate of learning. That's what intelligence is, how fast you actually learn something. So the faster you learn something, the smarter you are, the more intelligent you are. The sooner you change your behavior, the smarter you are. Make sense? Okay. Everyone wants to think that they're smart, right? But many of you will leave this webinar and go back to the same environment and not change the behavior. Right? And I'm not being pessimistic about it. I just know because I've been doing this for a long time. So we hear something, it makes a lot of sense, maybe or not, it clicks, and then we just go and we go back and we do the same thing. So intelligence is how fast you actually change the situation. Okay. Confidence is the other term. Confidence. Okay. How many of you guys agree that if we had a little bit more confidence, we would do a lot better? Right? We believed a little bit more in ourselves, right? We would do better. Because I don't know about you guys, but I still get imposter syndrome just being 100% real with you guys. You know, I'm responsible for a lot of people professionally and then with my girls. And I wake up some days and I'm like, who do I think I am? Right? To take all these responsibilities. But once again, that brain is always doubting. Imposter syndrome is something that the brain throws out there to keep you from ridicule, to keep you. So I personally agree that having more confidence will allow us to do better in everything we do. Now, what is confidence? The percentage of likelihood that something happens. That is what confidence is, the percentage of likelihood that something happens. And confidence is domain specific. So let me explain. Maybe you're confident at work. You know what you do at work. You're pretty, you're good at what you do. So you have confidence there. Maybe you're a great basketball player. So you get on a basketball court, you have some confidence there. So it is domain specific. When it comes to controlling your appetite, you're not so confident. Most people aren't. And so how do we become more confident in our ability to carry out this new lifestyle? Proof. Raise your hand if you have come onto this program and you've lost a significant amount of weight, and as a byproduct of that, now you have this confidence that you can sustain this for the rest of your life. Yes, that's called proof. That's called proof. So how do you create proof? You do it over and over and over again. When do you stop? Never. Well, you stop whenever you want to stop being confident. So you keep doing it over and over and over again. Do it enough times that you actually get bored of it. Okay. What specifically? The meal prep, the walks, the let me I've mentioned this story, but I'll say it again because I think it's a powerful story. I worked with this guy who was a super achiever. He was a high functioning human being. He was the CEO of a big Fortune 500 company. This guy would get to the gym on time. He would jump on the treadmill. He would warm up. He would then come on the floor for 45, 50 minutes. He would give it his all. I got to work with his kids over the summer, with his wife, his adolescent kids spoke well about him. Can you imagine? Right? His kids were like, my dad is awesome. He's super cool. He's a hard worker. He's work ethic. Oh, man, I want to be like the kid was telling me, I want to be like my dad. Like, what is this guy doing? What he's putting something in their food or something because everyone, spoke really well. Everyone, and so that particular gym was in a really sort of close niched community, and everyone knew this particular guy. Everyone spoke well about this guy. Everyone was like, "Oh, he's amazing. He's a great dad. He's a great professional. He's a given person." And so, man, I was just watching this guy, and so one day we were working out, and I looked at him and I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He says, "Sure." And he was doing lateral raises, and I said, "Can you tell me what your secret is?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Everyone speaks well of you. Everyone looks up to you. What's your secret?" And he said, "Boring will make you healthy, wealthy, and happy." And then he just kept doing his thing. And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You got to elaborate. What do you mean by boring will make you healthy, wealthy, and happy?" He said, JT, the vast majority of people are quick to end relationships, quit jobs, quit diets, and jump to the next thing. People are constantly quitting things, right? And they never have a level of mastery. And oftentimes he says the things that bring the biggest return on investment are the boring things. He says, so I have made a vow to myself to be efficient versus entertained. And that to me was like, wow, that just blew my mind because isn't that true? It's the things that we consistently do that are boring that yield the biggest dividends. So I hear sometimes, that's why when I hear from you guys sometimes, I'm just bored with my food, but you're losing weight and you feel good and all these good things. I'm like, but you're being efficient, right? And I'm not saying that you have to eat boring in order to maintain this lifestyle, but in the beginning, there's a little bit of friction there. We got to be a little bit conservative. And so, the ability to repeat things and just do them over and over and over again. How long? Forever. If it works, do it forever. Confidence comes from the past, not the present, right? If your plan requires luck to work, it's a bad plan. Okay. So once again, confidence comes from the past, not from the present. So we need to build a lot of these victories. We need to find specific blueprints that are working and just continue to do those blueprints over and over again. Someone said to me, someone that came on the program, actually Tia, a couple of months back when she came on this program, she did so well. She lost the weight, and then she just thought, hey, I just graduated. And I can now go do whatever I want. So she dropped all the principles and she just went back to her normal lifestyle. Guess what? She didn't put all the weight on, but she put some of that weight back. And it blew her mind that she had gained the weight back. She's like, I actually realized, I actually thought that I would do it one time and then the weight would never come back on. Right. And so we got to continue to do these things. And so sorry to be a broken record here, but I'm going to take you again through the stages, the emotional stages of the EYB plan, but I want to give it a different twist. So why do we need to do this? And why is it that we're not doing it? Right? So we have external conditions and internal conditions. Can I just say that the internal conditions mess with us more than anything else? Right? It is the mind. 80 to 90%. The battle's in the mind. You realize I speak more about the mind than I do about nutrition? You guys ever question that? Right? JT talks more about the mind because the nutrition part is so easy. right? It's the mental aspect of things that is really, really, really challenging. And so those internal conditions are the things that mess with us the most. So those 5 stages of the EYB, those 5 emotional stages of the EYB plan are number one, right? Stage one is uninformed optimism. Okay. Maybe you guys saw an ad, a video, a before and after that got your attention. You're like, I can go do that. You came onto the program, you were excited, you're thinking about your new body, you're thinking about all the possibilities, but then all of a sudden you reach stage two, informed pessimism. And then you're like, this is not as easy as I thought, right? I thought weight was just going to fly off. And then we get to stage three, valley of despair. And this is where you start to think, do I really need to lose weight? I think I look fine. I'm not losing weight, but I'm losing inches, right? And you start to give yourself all these excuses and you start to backtrack from what you were going to do because you encountered friction. And guess what? Most people spend an entire life going between phase 1, 2, and 3 and going back. So you quit the empty your bucket plan. Now you go do keto. You do stage 1, 2, and 3 in keto, and then you realize you hit the valley of despair. You go back again to stage 1, 2, and 3 because now you're doing Atkins, and the story goes on and on and on and on, and you never get through the valley of despair. But if you persist and you stay in that informed optimism, which is that stage 4, right? You say, yes, this is hard, but I have the tools that allow me to measure myself and grow, and I'm just going to persist and continue to do the thing. And the people that have achieved anything in life, in anything, in any aspect of life, have been through all 5 of these stages. And when they got through the valley of despair, they realized this sucks. It doesn't feel good. I'm not necessarily where I want to be, but I'm going to consistently do this and I'm going to break through. And they actually get to that place of stage 5, which is success and fulfillment. This is where we win, right? We get more from what we put in when we stick to things, right? It's not just a goal. I've said this to you guys many times. It's not just the goal that you're after, it's who you're becoming on the way to the goal. We learn a lot of things. This is why I say that there's this amazing concept inside of our program, which is we believe that the gold in the program really lies in the intrinsic rewards that come as a byproduct of coming on a program like this. And so, the idea really is that you're learning some things that you can apply to all areas of life just by regulating your appetite, just by saying no to the things that you want to do, right? And in the face of getting to the goal, but yes, you're creating basically all these intrinsic rewards. So, in essence, who do you need to become to do it, right? You need to become a learner. We need to learn these concepts. Same condition, new behavior. Start incorporating new behaviors ASAP. You're not doing this, or maybe you're just doing half of the things that we have said. Apply everything. Be intelligent, right? The faster you do these things, the smarter you actually are, right? It sounds simple, but it is powerful. And then gain confidence. Do me a favor. Go do everything I asked you to do this week without having one mishap and doing just 1 week. Do everything I ask you to do, and then go look at your numbers on Saturday. Now, I know some of you guys are probably thinking, well, the last week I did everything you told me to do. And I still didn't lose any weight. That happens sometimes. Okay, that does happen sometimes. But 99.9% of the time, if you actually follow the things, you stick to the behaviors, you actually get a return on investment. And that's how we build confidence, right? And then we commit, and we do it not for 3 months, not for 6 months, not for 9 months. Do it for a whole year. Because if you can do it for a whole year, right, these things become automatic. You will be another person on the other side. So when should you start? Yesterday. Because the longer it takes you to actually get started, the more wind, motivation, inspiration you lose. You're more motivated in the beginning of a journey, but if you're constantly having to start over and over and over again, it becomes a drag. The hardest thing for an airplane is to take off and to land. Those are the two most difficult things for a plane, right? This is when they encounter the most resistance. And most of you guys are just constantly taking off, constantly take. Let me start again on Monday, take off. Let me start again on Monday, take off. But if you get to a point, you start cruising, now things become a lot easier. So start ASAP. Don't delay this anymore. So I want to recap some of the things that I said here. Okay. We talked about what to do, how to do it, why to do it, who you need to become to do it, and when to get started. We talked about the inversion. This is super powerful, guys. Here's another thing. I cannot guarantee an outcome if you actually don't do the exercises. Do the invert exercise. Okay. This is the Einstein framework, which is invert, always invert when trying to figure out a problem. Figure out all the ways how you can mess things up. Pick the number one thing that would cause the biggest issue inside of the program, right? And that becomes your North Star. Maybe it's cardio, maybe it's meal prep, maybe it's not going to restaurants, whatever that is for you. But you're inverting it, right? So you're saying, I'm gonna go to all the restaurants. I'm not gonna do any of the cardios, right? Pick one, and that becomes your North Star. Because it's easier for our brains to find problems than solutions. Remember that. We talked about being a learner, right? Learning is being in the same condition, but choosing a new behavior. Start incorporating that new behavior as soon as possible. And being intelligent is actually the rate of learning, how fast you actually put things into action, right? That's what makes you a smart person. And confidence is doing it over and over and over again, and then committing to a whole year. Now, if you're on this program for 6 weeks or 3 months, right? And, last week we put out an amazing offer for those that want to continue on for another 37 weeks. And some of you guys took me up on it. And some of you guys are still thinking about it, and that's okay. But I'm telling you right now, that is a powerful way to incorporate all of these things that we're talking about here. Doing it well, moving forward, and getting this thing out of the way so that you never have a problem with it again. The reason we made the offer is because we kept getting people because our promise is that we teach you the tools. So in 90 days, 6 weeks to 90 days, you learn the tools and you should be able to incorporate them for yourself. But what we realize is that one of the main features here is actually accountability. And that without accountability, it gets very tricky, right? Some of you guys can just take off, continue doing what you're doing. But most of us need the extra accountability, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday touch points, the Saturday diagnostic questions, coming to webinars. I don't want to call anyone out, but if you notice, there are people here that were here 2 weeks ago and they graduated and they haven't come back. That happens often. We lose contact, right? For some reason, people just disconnect. And when they disconnect, it's very easy to fall back into old habits. People that go to AA have to go for the rest of their lives, right? And I think food is more alluring than drugs and alcohol, right? Because with drugs and alcohol, if you want to get sober, you simply stop doing those things. Food, we have to obviously continue to eat. So we continue to get tempted. So there's always that temptation there. Always, that's always there. So we need accountability groups so that we can understand, hey, food can be enjoyed, but I need healthy parameters around food. Okay, we've talked a lot of things here. Was this helpful, guys? Okay. I know you've heard of some of these concepts already, but I wanted to revisit them in a very different way. And I wanted to really break things down and get very granular when it comes to how to implement these things. So I think the inversion framework is super powerful. I think it's super powerful. So take some time, okay? Take a piece of paper, write down all the things that you can do to mess up the program, pick your top three, right? And then from those three, pick your top two, and then pick your top number one, and then do the opposite of that. And that's how we win. Because the cool thing is yes, if you do all the concepts that we teach you, that's powerful. But if you just pick one concept and you master it, right, then what it actually does, it enhances all the other ones that are not necessarily happening. Let me explain. You have a hard time thinking about food throughout the day because you're busy, but you actually master the art of slow burn, now you become more cognizant the rest of the day about food. If you actually start eating healthy, now you have a desire to go move, right? Because when we start getting healthy, our body requires movement, right? This is why someone said to me the other day, they might be on this webinar. They said, something really interesting has happened to me since I came on this program. And they said, I'm more aware of things. I'm actually more responsible. I'm actually showing up in a very different way. Like I'm actually doing all the things that I had to do. I'm more aware. I'm more responsible. I'm interacting better with people because that's what happens when we get healthy. We get healthy and then we lose weight. You guys realize that, right? We get healthy and then we lose weight. We get healthy and then we start showing up as the best version of ourselves. And so instead of thinking of all these things that I have to do, pick one, doing it in the inversion framework, pick one thing and then go after that thing. And then you just start seeing every single one of those things true.